My career sucks.
Sex just isn't the same.
What's my purpose?
Where did this fat come from?
My relationship is killing me.
I'll never be happy.
My debt is piling up. I'll never find love. Why can't I be like other gay guys? Hey guys, it's time to get a grip, stop whining, make a bold move, and do something amazing with your 40-plus gay life. Let's get to the show with your Tell It Like It Is host, Rick Clemons, who does his best to never act like a dick or a diva unless you act like one first.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 40-plus Gay Men Gay Talk. And just a quick reminder, don't forget to join us monthly for our Gay Men's Chats or join our Facebook group. Why would you want to do that? Because this is where you create the connections. And speaking of connections, sometimes you get connected to something that you're just drawn to. It's like, I've got to go do this. Kind of like a hot date. I got to go on this hot date. He's really handsome, okay? But life calls you to these moments. And I felt, given the current state of everything on the planet, especially here in the US, and the state of politics, what an honor, what a true honor to get to speak to someone who's like, I'm putting my stake in the ground. I am going to give it my best shot in a state where all the odds are somewhat against them. All the odds are kind of against them. But this beautiful guest is absolutely giving it his best shot. His name is Dakarai Larriett. He is a proud Alabama native. I'm going to say he is an Alabama native, and he is very proud to be running for office in his home state. He is the son of a U.S. Army veteran. And a public school teacher. He has done many things. He's smart. He's like, I'm looking at this like magna cum laude. He's smarter. He's too smart for me to be talking to, folks. I'm kidding. But he's got an MBA from NYU. He's done a lot of corporate stuff in his world, from L'Oreal and Whirlpool. I'm just excited to be talking to someone who's like, I'm ready to put some stakes in the ground and take my run at this. So welcome to the podcast. One of my probably best new friends, just from what we've been doing before we came on there. We've already been laughing and having a good time. Dakarai, welcome to the podcast, man. Glad that you're here. And thank you for doing what you're doing, man. This is like,
thank you.
Fighting the fight. So, okay, the podcast is your man. Just go run with it. You're smarter than me. No, I'm kidding.
Well, thank you so much for having me here,
Absolutely,
Rick, and it's really
man.
an honor.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think this is one of those moments in time where we are all being called in so many ways. How we go do what we're being called is up to you as an individual, but you're taking a big step. I mean, you're running for office in Alabama, right? Let's get real about this.
I am. And you know what? Don't rule out Alabama. I like to tell people that there's so many surprises in our state that come visit us and you'll see them. For example, I'm so honored that my state representative, Neil Rafferty, is an openly gay man and a veteran. So the pathway is there. And we have leaders in our state at every level that are LGBT. So every level. I'm not here to out people, but again, every level. And everyone's at their own level of being out. That's their prerogative. So I refuse to live my life with barriers, and I'm certainly not going to enforce barriers on myself. So I decided that it was time for me to run.
And I love what you just said there, man. Okay, I'm gonna start like dissecting some stuff here. First of all, it shows you're a person of integrity, because you're saying, hey, there's people at all levels, and that's what I'm gonna say. There's just people at all levels. And I love that you said everybody has the right to be out in the way that works for them. It pisses me off, quite honestly. And I love my community. I'm going to piss some people off probably that's listening right now. Nobody gets to tell anybody how to be out. You just don't get to tell people how to do that. Now, that doesn't mean they have less pride. That doesn't mean they're less gay, less lesbian, less any of this. It means I'm being myself in my own best way. And when we as a community push that agenda, I feel like we're shooting ourselves in the foot, because there is more good that can be done sometimes by meeting the moment, being who we are, and then suddenly find somebody who goes, oh, wow, I didn't know you were, quote, gay or bi or les or trans or whatever it is. And because they built that relationship with you, not saying it's not going to go south. It can at times, but we can be better beacons of hope and impact sometimes with just showing up, being who we are.
wholeheartedly agree with that.
So why did
Yes.
you decide to make this step? Let's get right into it.
You know what? It really started from my false arrest last year. That
Mhm.
was the spark. I was driving through the state of Michigan. I was apprehended by the Michigan State Police. I was driving with a friend, and I endured homophobic attacks, racial profiling, you name it. And after the incident, learned through the body and dash cam many months later that the troopers were actually trying to plant drugs in my vehicle. So
Mhm.
they wanted a complete ruin. And I tried to get justice after that, advocating all the way up to the governor of Michigan, down to my local police department, and no one was on my side, even with the
Mhm.
evidence, the whole point of the body and dash cam. And when I realized just how broken the system was, I said, I have got to do something about this. And I
Mhm.
thought about a number of offices. Folks have said, well,
Yeah.
why not city council? Why not state rep? We've got to change the laws federally.
Mhm. And that incident, number one, had to be just like horrifying. I mean, I don't think anybody's go, oh yeah, let's go out today and hope I get pulled over and false evidence be played. I mean, it had to have done some huge impact in your own psyche and your own mental well being, but yet it also was the motivation and the inspiration to like, got to go forward, got to go forward.
You're right. It's kind of like a boomerang. Like at first, it sets you back. And I went through a lot of trauma. And what I later learned was PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, the actual night itself was humiliating, being jailed, being forced to use the restroom publicly in the jailhouse. That was terrible. But
Mm-hmm.
when I saw the body and dash cam, which took 5.5 months of fighting for, when I saw that and I saw, Rick, how close I was to imagine my life being ruined
Mm-hmm.
with a drug charge, right? A drug trafficking charge. Like, could I work? Could I get housing? All of that went through my mind. That's where the trauma really set
Mm-hmm.
in. And I went into therapy and I started writing. And I ultimately wrote a book about the experience, and it's called Don't Flush.
Mm-hmm.
And it largely recounts that night and then is interspersed with stories of struggle and survival that my whole family has experienced from the civil rights era up to now.
Yeah. And it's powerful when we can take this stuff. And I'm so glad that you have put this into print because as we're seeing many things unfold currently in our country, I don't think people realize the impact of the what I'm going to call the trauma that is the false trauma. You're impacting people with stuff that none of this is true. And then, okay, we'll wash our hands. Sorry, we made a mistake. No, no, no. This is happening too much. First of all, it shouldn't happen, period. But when, people are getting pulled off the streets or people are getting falsely accused of things like you were, or any number of things like, arrests for just quietly protesting, like we're just protesting, we're not breaking business into
Right.
businesses, we're not caught, and you're being arrested for this. There's nothing, you can't tell me that people are not experiencing trauma. The moment those handcuffs goes on, the trauma is already embedded in our system. And I
Yeah.
think it's very unfortunate that these things are happening. So as you have come through and you indicated, your own, therapy and all this sort of stuff, what are some of the key things that you feel like, and you don't need to list all of them, one or two, like key things that you're like, I never thought I could get past this, and yet here I am. I've actually overcome that challenge.
Oh, gosh, that's a great question. No one's asked that before.
Well, that means I'm a damn good podcaster then. So,
Well, I would say the hardest part for me was the humiliation.
mm-hmm,
And even when I was thinking about running for office or in the very early days, my team said, hey, this is going to come back and we shouldn't talk about this. And initially, because I've never done this before, I
right.
felt that I should listen to their advice. But the more and more I thought about it and got more diverse opinions on the team, we said, we've got to lean into this because it's out there. The video went viral of my false arrest. I'm in a tracksuit, pajamas, right? So imagine um, this becoming an attack ad in 6 months from now. So I guess that was one of the things that I thought could destabilize me moving forward. But then we decided to own it. How many of
Mm.
us have run a quick errand in our pajamas?
Yeah.
I was dropping a friend off at 3 a.m. and I was going to go home and go to sleep and go to work the next day. Totally allowed to do that as an American. I violated no crimes. And I
Right.
finally realized, hey, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was to myself, that I did nothing wrong. It was the police that committed the crime that night.
Yet, this is the thing that causes so much of the humiliation and trauma. I did nothing wrong, but I'm being told by people who I would love to quote unquote, typically in a normal day, respect. I'm going to respect the
Yes.
law. I'm going to respect governance, as hard as that is to say in this day and age. And yet I didn't do anything, and I think this is the problem that we're starting to see. And as a, let's just go there. As a Black community, you've dealt with this
Mhm.
for eons, decades, right? As a
Right.
gay community, we've dealt with this a ton, and
Yeah.
the thing is when this can happen to any sector of our world, it can happen to you, and people aren't seeming to get that concept. You're just one step away
Yes.
from this happening for you,
Oh,
because
for
you may
sure.
not, you may not march to the right drummer or whatever it might be. But as a Black gay man, I can only imagine just day-to-day life sometimes can be like, really? We have to keep doing this. We
Hmm.
have to keep doing
Well,
this, right?
you mentioned a number of really interesting points. My family is extensively in law enforcement. So I am not one of those people who had a negative view of the police. And I don't to this day. I have trauma from one incident. So also take a look at this. It happened to me when I was 42 years old. So I
Mm,
went, let's say half my life span, no negative incidents with the police. In fact, mostly positive because of my family working for the FBI and working for Birmingham Police Department where I live. So that's a hard thing. I have to kind of put myself in experience of some folks who have had these experiences in a negative manner all of their lives. And I also have to think about, as running for office, we've got to support the police, but we've got to also think about ways to reform them and drive accountability. And I think one of the biggest things we can do is push back on qualified immunity. And
mm,
unfortunately, most states are expanding qualified immunity. And we see
mm.
that in Alabama. They just passed a bill to expand qualified immunity, including for corrections officers.
Yep.
So you think about that new documentary, The Alabama Solution. Instead of fixing the issues, the chronic issues in the system, now we're just saying, hey, well, you can't sue us civilly.
Right. Yeah. And you're only expanding the problem. And that's
Right.
the challenge is for so many of these issues, it's okay, well, it's almost like, well, we don't really want to dig in and really have to think about this. We don't want to have to expose and admit that this is where the challenges are. And when it really comes down to it, okay, and again, I'm going to go where, people of color have dealt with this forever, right? When those sort of things happen, like what just is happening with that whole Alabama thing and other states, it's like, yeah, but we see we're right, so we're not gonna go dig deeper and get to the heart core of the issue. And that's where, to me, it gets really frightening. There's decisions being made without qualified research to say, oh, wait, maybe we do need to change this because it's a power play. And that's the stuff that I think for me as a gay man, and I'm white and I'm privileged. I'm just going to admit that. I can walk down the street and nobody's going to know I'm gay unless I go, grr. It's not going to happen, right? You're not going to find me like off in the trees at doing, a man in the trees either. So I'm not going to get caught doing that stuff. but it's such an interesting space to realize this is where the power of being a voice. This is where the power of, even if, even no matter where this running for office takes you, you have been present. You come from a family that has been very present. And so there's all these pieces like, hey, here's one. I love that you said early on in this conversation, hey, don't discount Alabama. Now that you've shared what you've shared about being part of the law system and FBI and everything, there are people who would go, these people, they're no good. Really?
Yeah.
Here, can we have the evidence come forth? They've been part of the fabric of the legal system, and the law enforcement system. So what is one of the things that you see in where you sit right now is going to be some of the biggest uphill battles for you as you start to move forward?
We've got to build off of that Doug Jones constituency when he won the Democratic seat, actually this very same seat in 2017. We've got to build off of that. And that was a special election. So it was rather limited turnout. So with our governor and Senate being on the ballot next year, I've got to go even deeper to find allies throughout the state. And that's what I'm doing. And again, like I said, I am not going to limit myself or set guardrails. I'm very open about who I am. And it's like, okay, we got that out of the way. I was falsely arrested and I'm gay. Like, we just threw the biggest things out there, ran with them. And in fact, it's been really amazing. Our biggest fundraising day ever came from what I like to call our coming out text message, when we were just like, we're owning it. And the donor community loved it. So
that's awesome.
We got that out of the way. Now it's about just getting into the community. And there's 67 counties in the state. So I've been traveling up and down the state for months now, just trying to meet everybody and build the name recognition. So when you think about Alabama and most states, but Alabama especially, we have a lot of voters who vote on name recognition. And that's why we have a coach, Tuberville, who is our senior senator. And we have an SGA president, Katie Britt, who is our junior senator. So I bring 20 years of experience to the table in public service, in business and entrepreneurship, and serving my community. And I feel uniquely qualified. I've just got to get my name recognition up.
Right. Well, and I think that's the thing is sometimes it's about meeting the person, really truly meeting the person, seeing the person, and that name recognition starts to happen because they've seen the heart and the soul of who the person is. And it's so interesting to me to work in some of the work that I do. And those who've listened to the podcast know that I work with public speakers to help them build their speaking business. And their whole thing is, how do I get gigs? How do I get gigs? I'm like, you've got to let people get to know you. Yes, there's going to be calls for speakers and stuff like that, but you're coming in as a quote unknown. So part of it is the relationship building piece. And this is the fabric of humanity. Let's just be honest, good or bad politicians, a lot of times the politician that wins is because they did a really good job of getting their face out there, being seen. And, yes, a lot of times it might be, okay, they got the money behind them. We know that works too. But the money behind them is helping to get their face in front of them. So I'm really curious, and I'm not trying to stir up garbage here, guys, on the show, but I'm going to go there. What is some of the biggest challenges for you within, if there are, I don't know, there are, within our own LGBTQ community?
In terms of?
Like in terms of you running for office, is there anything that you're experiencing from within our own? Because I know at times it can happen.
I would say, in terms of community support, we've been the strongest. And that's great to see. And people realize it as an opportunity to break some barriers. And that really has excited people. And I want to build off of that and bring it into other constituent groups. In terms of the issues and how explicitly we talk about trans rights, LGBT rights, there has for sure been some pushback because the campaign is really focused on kitchen table issues
Right.
given the environment we're in and the state we're in.
Mhm.
So I have used these interviews as a way to talk to our population, and I've started to draft some policy around my support without allowing it to become a culture war issue. So
Right.
there has been a little bit of pushback. In fact, one of my donors said, "Well, we need to know your LGBT strategy." And I'm like, it's Alabama. My strategy is that everyone deserves dignity and respect
Right.
and their human rights. If I start getting into all of these specific, what procedures do
Right.
you recommend at what age for individuals that are seeking gender transition? That's how you lose in Alabama.
Well, and again, this is where I'm probably going to piss some people off. It's okay. Hate mail is my friend. I often wish, and I love our community, I wish we would realize if we can have, and I'm going to go back to what you said, if we can meet people in the kitchen table discussions and say, hey, I'm a gay man and I have a husband, and we have these same kitchen table issues that you do, it starts to build the bridge.
Yeah,
Yes, I want to support a lot of things in my own community as well. But sometimes you got to meet them where it's like they can really relate. And then you can start to have the other conversations and introduce them to other things. One of the biggest things that I talk about
exactly.
all the time with people is, you know, God forbid, but I feel like gay marriage is going to come up. It's going to come up all over again. And when I tell my heterosexual friends, like, hey, here's why I'm concerned about this. There are whatever it is, 1,150, 1,151 rights that you get when you get married, that when you're not married, you don't get those. Number one, straight out the gate. I told a friend of mine this the other day. I said, here's the thing with the gay marriage. Well, it's never going to get taken away. I said, there's a high probability they could try to do it. Okay. And they might even
Mhm.
succeed. Right out the gate, I now switch my tax bracket from married to single once again. And suddenly I'm
Mhm.
paying more taxes because that's how I have to file. This is
Mhm.
not fair. And that's only one little
Mhm.
issue. Okay.
Mhm.
You can go into all the other stuff. This is why, to me, the kitchen table conversations have to be had, and so how would I meet somebody in that conversation? Hey, let me give you an example of what could happen here. If these things happen, there's tax things that happen to people who aren't married. Notice I didn't say gay, right?
Yeah.
People who aren't married pay more taxes because they have to file single. Okay. When somebody has the ability to be married, they don't have that problem. They can both contribute, but there's other things that happen. As a single person, if I have somebody I'm in a relationship with, they may or may not be able to see me in the hospital. Notice I didn't say gay. I said
Mhm.
people who are single, who are in a relationship, who aren't married, they may not be able to come and see them in the hospital, gay or straight. I'm not
Right.
bringing that piece up because what I want to do, Dakarai, is meet them where they can understand it and say, and this has the effect on everybody. Suddenly,
Right.
that's when we can bring people into the conversation. And I love my
Right.
community. I'm never going to say I don't
Mhm.
love my LGBTQ community. But sometimes I feel like we get on these issues and we get on them in quote, I don't want to say the wrong way, but we give them some emphasis that here, can we meet? Like if you can't have a medical procedure because of your unique situation, how would that make you feel? If your government was telling
Right.
you, oh no, you can't have that procedure because we don't believe as a government that's right for you, how would you feel? You notice once again, I didn't bring up trans, not one
Right.
time. To me,
Right.
this is where a friend of mine said, you should be running for office. I'm like, hell no.
Well, it's all about messaging. You're
It
so
is.
right, and relatability, and our stories matter, but
Mm-hmm.
this is the statewide office. I have to remind people of that many times. It's a statewide office in Alabama where 75% of people profess to be Christian. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I've lived that life and
Mm-hmm.
I understand their frame of reference. So you're right. We've got to find the commonality. And to use a sports analogy, because we are a sports state, in particular football, You want a candidate who's going to move the ball down the field in the direction you want to go the
Mm-hmm.
farthest. That's it. It's not a marriage. So we've got to move away from these purity tests as
Mm-hmm.
well, right?
Yep.
Who's going to be effective and move things in the right direction?
Mm-hmm. What excites you the most about being able right now to even be on the campaign trail and the possibility of stepping into that role? What is the excitement that
Mhm.
you get from this?
Well, it's interesting. Last year, when I made the decision, it's kind of crazy to think it was a year now. I knew that I would be in rooms and meet people that I never even imagined that I would meet.
Mm.
And now, a year in, which is still super early because I started 2 years before the election, right? We still have until November of 2026. I've already met, gosh, countless representatives, senators, and influential people. And I've been able to write op-eds and to move the ball down the field, even without being elected, in the areas that matter to me, specifically criminal justice and those kitchen table issues that we discussed a little bit earlier. So the run itself matters, and that's been super exciting.
I think that's the thing is the motivation behind it isn't always necessarily I got to win. That would be nice, okay? Because to be able to have the equal voices, as we're recording this, California is stirring up the shit about redistricting, not what we would want to do. I'm going to be real honest. This is where I am going to get a little bit on my soapbox. This is not what I would normally advocate for. However, you got to meet the war where you got to meet the war. And when these redistricting things start to come up, it's like you don't get to play it this way on one side of the fence and not get to play it on the other side of the fence. And unfortunately, the motivation behind it is to continue to try to bring equality and democracy into play. And what I love about what you're saying, Dakarai, is the motivation is for you to continue to be able to keep some equality in the state of Alabama, some equal viewpoints in the state of Alabama. And, we talked a lot about Alabama. I lived in Arkansas. I lived in Texas. I lived in Oklahoma. Been there. I was raised around a lot of what's happening. Wasn't the flashpoints it is currently. In fact, when I was at Oklahoma State and stuff, I'm like, I don't know, there's just hot cowboys going to school here. That's all I was kind of noticing. Even though I wasn't out of the closet at that point, I'm like, there's a lot of hot cowboys here, and I'll look at that any day of the week. But now that I'm older and wiser and can look back, I'm like, it is such an interesting space to see how, as humans, we see something, and yet, okay, yeah, I'm for that. But even the tone of voice I just used, you see something, you do something. And that's what I see in what you're trying to do. You are like, I see something, I'm doing something, I'm going to try to be, and I know there's a lot of people who say this, I'm going to try to be that bridge. And people get
Yeah.
really ticked off at politicians like, well, we're going to bridge this. Well, if you can't bridge it, nothing's going to get done, folks. So let's at least do that. So when you were younger, what was something that you were really into that kind of is what drove you to where you are right now? And if you say a hot politician, I'm going to reach through the screen and slap you, girl.
Gosh, no, that was exactly not what I was
Well,
thinking.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Jehovah Witness. Let's go there. Jehovah Witness. I was raised Seventh Day Adventist. Okay, so
oh
there's
wow,
these
okay,
things that we were
yeah,
really deeply raised in, right?
yeah, yeah.
That prevented so much of us from being who we are. But back to the question, like, what was something that really possibly was part of what you were as a young man that kind of you can see it's kind of brought you to meet this moment?
Well, that's a perfect segue. Being a Jehovah's Witness, imagine as a child door knocking and proselytizing and being rejected door after door after door, having to give
Well,
speeches.
that just sounds like a night on Grinder. I mean, come on, let's get real about this.
Well, I was bridging to running for office. So imagine campaigning and door knocking and asking for
Mm-hmm.
money, and the skill sets are there. So it was really interesting when I first started the campaign. I'm like, this is a lot like being a Jehovah's Witness, actually, quite a bit. And so that strength that I gained as a kid is reimagined now in politics, which is ironic because Jehovah's Witnesses are apolitical.
Right. Well, and the interesting thing too is I feel like, and I'm not you, but I'm going to go there. I feel like part of the power, which I love what you just shared. It's like, oh wow, I would have never like put those two things together. But I think also part of the power is coming out of the closet and saying, this is who I truly am. That strength of this is who I am. I am a gay man. I'm a Black gay man. And you've already said this. You're not hiding anything. You're not hiding anything for anybody out there that you're knocking on doors. You're not knocking on the door and going, hey girl, here, have a flag. Right. But you're not hiding it either. And I think this is the beauty of what, if we do this correctly, should I say correctly? If we do this aligned with who we truly are, this is where we each become the witness in a way that sometimes we don't even have to say the words. We just don't even have to say the words. It's kind of like, if you're really truly a Christian, you don't ever have to say I'm a Christian. It's just going to kind of be known.
Right.
The way your actions speak louder than your words. And as a gay man, I have found numerous times that me being gay has the most impact when I don't have to say it. Yeah, it has the most impact when and again, we're going to kind of do the kitchen table sort of conversation. When in the past, when my kids were younger and I was involved in stuff at their schools and stuff, and the inevitable question like, oh, well, what's your wife do? Well, my husband does this. Didn't make a scene out of it. Like, oh, my husband, he does this. How that gets received is not up to me. It's up to the other person. But this isn't like, let's have it. Well, here, let me explain something to you. I have, these are my children. Yes, I had sex with my wife. They're mine. But then I decide I don't like that. I want some dick. Let's just go there. Right. I'm not going to go into all that detail. It's, hey, yeah, my husband does this. And it's so interesting to see how sometimes that can go south. Very rarely did it go south. But most of the time it's like, oh, okay. Because the people just kind of accept that. I was at a recent lovely visit to the ER, and they said, do you have a spouse? And I thought, this is where we've gotten to. We've finally gotten to the place where we ask the questions out of respect versus, do you have a husband? Do you have a wife? Right? Do you have a spouse? Yeah. Is that your spouse here with you? Yes, it is. Okay, great. Well, he can come back and this to me is what starts to smooth the roads, and you're knocking on the door. Example was so beautifully said. So let's talk a little bit about the book, because I want to make sure we already plugged it a little bit, but obviously you felt compelled out of that experience, like, let's get this in print, let's create the book, let's do this. If somebody were to read the book, what would be one takeaways you would hope somebody would take away from that experience?
That we all have a moment where we can do nothing, or we can take the experience and use it to move the ball down the field. And I took that very dark moment, and I just hope that I help one person. And from the reviews that are coming in, I've helped multiple people to see what they can do to help with justice, to perhaps run for office, or do something small in their community, even if it's just voting.
I love that it is the simplicity of what you just said. It could be this, it could be this, it could be this. I love that you keep using the metaphor of moving the ball down the field. Do you like football, man? I've got to ask. Do you like what you get?
I'm an Alabama grad, so
Okay, I mean, I know people are always kind of surprised when I'm like, oh yeah, go Pokes, and they're like, what do you mean you go Pokes? I'm like, oh, I'm an OSU grad. I mean, we kind of go with the football, and it always shocks people. Like, we would never have seen you at a football game. I'm like, oh, yes, you would have. I was one of those drunk, college boys. Like, let's do it. Let's move everybody up the stadium over our heads on our arms. Yes, I had my shirt off and I had the big O painted.
Oh my gosh. I can imagine. I live next door to the stadium in Alabama, so
it's crazy. It's crazy. But I think your beautiful examples of this is, how do we keep, and we're going to go metaphors here, boys, on the sports again, whether you like it or not. How do you keep moving the ball down the field? And the thing is it's towards the goal. The goal is continuing with equality, with humanity, with seeing each other. We're never all going to agree. Okay. Let's understand that bit. But what's in the best interest of humanity? And I think this is where we've lost our way on both sides of the fence. I'm going to be there. I'm not going to say I'm too far on the other side of the fence, but I think there are many issues like, how does this not hurt humanity? Right. And that's where I think if we can, any of us can contribute to getting back to center as you are doing by running this campaign. More power to it. So, all right, my friend, anything else you want to say to the audience before we cut loose here? Because I feel like we've covered a lot of territory, but is there some burning thing that you'd like to say that would help you in your campaign or help us as guys over 40? Because I feel like us gay men over 40, we have an interesting space to play in our own community. So any last words, bud?
Well, I guess I say on the campaign, like, this is our race. This is not just Alabama. Like, remember, this is for control of the Senate. And it's about, like you said, like advancing our society and getting us back to even normal. That's not the goal, but that's the baseline. Can we get back to normal by getting control of our Senate again and the legislative branch and letting it work for us again? So that's what's just so important. And, in terms of the audience in particular, it excites a lot of people that someone with our demographics is out there and running, and that's great. And I'm so appreciative of that support. And I think for me, that it's not lost on me, but I really am focused on what can our experiences bring to the table. So it's not about getting a Wikipedia mention or something like that. The first is the first that. It's this experience, this empathy. We need that in the Senate. And thanks for all the support. And check out the website, DakariLarriett.com, to learn more.
Okay, that's awesome. I love that we're ending on this is our race. That is so true. And I know people on the other side think the same thing, but here's the beautiful thing. If it is our race as a humanity, at some point, fingers crossed, we will come back to, yes, this is it. So thank you so much. We will have links to everything that you can reach out and connect with Dakarai. We'll have a link to his book and his website, all that good stuff. We'll even probably put a little link out there if you want to, donate a little bit to the campaign. We would love to see that happen. But again, so good to meet you, man, and to have you on here and speaking about this thing, which is our race. I so appreciate you taking the time, Dakarai. Thanks for being here with me.
Thank you so much, Rick. It was such an honor.
That's a wrap for 40 Plus. Gay men, gay talk, where size doesn't matter. We drop our bullshit, get over our screwed up fears, make bold moves, and live life without apologies. Don't forget to join us on Facebook at 40 Plus, Gay Men, Gay Talk, where the conversations continue.